1 out of every 5 students report being bullied. 13% were made fun of, called names, or insulted. They were pushed, shoved, tripped, or spit on. 1 in 5 tweens have been cyberbullied. It's a problem, and it has to stop. Welcome to Bully This, a hero's journey. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Our passion is to show kids that there is life after bullying. You'll hear from former bullies and bullying victims, and you'll hear how they made their journey from troubled youth to successful adults. Welcome to Bully This, a hero's journey. Now your hosts, Tyler Copenhaver Heath and Clifford Starks.
Hello and welcome to episode 6, Bully This, a hero's journey. I'm Tyler.
I'm Clifford.
Okay, Cliff, it's a new episode number 6 already.
Yes.
And I want to go back to this celebrities that were bullied concept, right? And I'm going to give you somebody today. And there is a phrase that this person had that's so good, I'm just going to read it because I think it actually says a lot about the bullying subject. Okay, so she states, the phenomenon of getting bullied is so commonplace that it's often packaged as a fundamental piece of growing up, the essential requirement that's supposed to fortify your spirit and equip you for the vicious, unyielding real world. I just thought that was incredible and said so much.
Yeah.
I also want to say about her, she was often teased for her lofty goals. And from the start, she kind of knew she was destined for greatness. And she would boast this quite often. And so she was actually teased for it. One of her biggest transitions, and this is going to give me maybe the best clue, she pulled from her youth years to reflect in her character. Any idea?
I know exactly who it is.
Okay.
Lady Gaga.
Did you look at my notes?
I did look at the notes.
I
knew it was Lady Gaga too.
So it was, in fact, Lady Gaga. And Yasmin, just so you know, we like to put celebrity stories on here so people can see, so cool. The kids can see, hey, these are people that that dealt with this. And
when you said destined for greatness, that's her. That was her from the very beginning. She knew. She
totally knew. And she, her role is that role in The Star is Born. So she actually pulled from her bully years to play that character. So pretty great. So into the introduction, Cliff, we've had quite a few guests now. Yes. So often there's something unique or different about them that people tend to exploit or use against them. We had a guest who was forced to wear a back brace and they were teased for it. A guest who was given problems because she was over 6 feet tall at an early age. A baseball player who was bullied for being small. What all these people have in common is they were playing the cards that they were dealt. Oftentimes, kids would take these differences and tease them for it. Our next guest didn't have a choice either, but to some, it may seem like she did. But if you believe in something as a part of your being, is it truly that easy to change? Even if it were to make your life easier. But many people might say, why don't you change so you can blend in with the rest of the kids? So I'm so excited today to introduce Yasmine Elhati. Yasmine Elhati is an attorney and comedian who has toured all over the US and the UK. She's performed at the Kennedy Center and is featured on NBC's True Story with Ed Holmes and Randall Park, streaming on Peacock. I watched this. It's awesome. It's well worth seeing. Her dad's quite the character. You can catch her stand-up comedy on TikTok and her comedic skits on Instagram. And then you can link to those through her bio when you watch this episode. She'll be back at the Kennedy Center on May 18th for TEDx. She was named a Yes and Laughter Lab finalist for 2022 for her 1-hour comedy special. All right, Yasmin, and if that's not enough that she's done so much, Yasmin also attended UCLA School of Law, where she was the president of her class. You will be president.
Yes.
You will be president.
You will be.
Watch the show. It'll make more sense. She also has a master's in public policy from Princeton, where she served as her graduate students class representative. Once again, she was selected as Department of Justice Attorney General's Honors Fellow and currently works as an attorney in public service. Awesome. Using comedy as a means of healing is clearly something Yasmin excels at. In watching her on True Story, I found myself laughing and loving the experience she's brought us through. She makes tough things seem bright, and her dad, a shining beacon for the same. I think more of us should take his advice and just do it. But I guess it's best if Yasmin tells it. Welcome to the show today.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. Cliff and Tyler, it's a real honor to be here. And what a cool, inspiring message for everyone who's listening that, bullying is it's not the end, it's just the beginning. It's the beginning of your journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one thing so cool about Bully This, a Hero's Journey is we literally get to tell the journey, right? So if we just pinpointed a point in your life at some points, we would say, oh no, but we can look at what you've done as part of a journey and what you continue to do as, as a way that kids can look at it and say, I can do that too, or I can be the same, or I understand this. So to begin the journey today, I would love if you could start off with somewhere around Egypt and the way you grew up and some of that story.
Yeah, so I was born in Cairo and I thought I was Egyptian my whole life. And I did not realize that my father was actually Libyan and he had sought asylum in Egypt. So my dad was a part of the Gaddafi regime, which is always a little awkward, but so he was a minister in that regime, but we're on the right side of history, everyone. He opposed Gaddafi vehemently. He joined the opposition movement. He lost all of it, everything as a result of it, his wealth, his status, his respect, really. And he tried to seek asylum in Egypt and things were going okay. He met my mom, he got married, right? He had my brother, he had me. And I thought I'm just like this person just going through Cairo, living my life as a young toddler, as a kid. I went to preschool and then met my like, you need to come home right now from my brother took me along because I was in the preschool. He was in the older class. He's 5 years older than me. And we got home and she's like, we're going to go on a vacation. And I was like, really? It's like the middle of the school. Okay, cool. And and she didn't pack very much, and I'm like, oh, we're packing lightly. We're going, it's like a short vacation. Okay. And then my brother was like, it's going to be so much fun. We're not going to have to go to school. And I was like, okay, yeah, school sucks. Okay, this is going to be great. And I remember my dad, he actually wasn't with us. He flew to Germany. So my dad flew separate from us to try to basically not alert anyone to the fact that we were fleeing Egypt. Yeah. And the reason we were doing that is, unfortunately, after the 89 Lockerbie bombings, which, it's a terrible tragedy, Libyans were kind of pariah. They were anathema to every society that they lived in. And people were selling back their refugees because Gaddafi was paying a premium to get back who he believed were traitors so that he could assassinate them, kill them, or publicly execute them. And, he did this. It was in his wheelhouse, unfortunately, to do that. Publicly in stadiums and soccer stadiums, and he would execute people. The guy was a maniac. And there's a really beautiful book called The Return by Hisham Al-Mutar that is actually a Pulitzer Prize winning book from 2017 that describes the very kidnapping that happened of his father that actually set my father down the path of, we have to leave tomorrow. We have to leave the next day. Wow. He flew off to Germany. We flew to Jordan, and then he met us there. And then we just country hopped from country to country trying to seek asylum. And they would not give it to us. They would not give us asylum. And it's because Libyans, again, were not seen as desirable refugees. And we landed in the UK, and we were just so lucky that a man from the UK said, look, like, we don't have any refugee numbers up. Everything is done here. Stay for 6 months. And my dad was like, well, we've been traveling for months. I don't have any more money. I remember my brother was really comforting to me because people, did not speak my language. They didn't have my culture. I was out of school for a very long time. And my brother really helped me just make it seem like it was just an adventure, and that this was fun, and that we always had each other, and we could always play with each other. And I really credited him with like not making it a traumatic experience, but one that was fun and odd, like confused. And that guy said, I know a guy in the embassy. He called a guy at the embassy. He said, give these guys a visitor visa. Just give these guys a visitor visa. They will claim asylum the minute that they get to JFK. And someone at the consulate had mercy on us. And that's what happened. And we got to the US, we got JFK. My dad was like, here are all my passports. Like, here is every single like document. Like, and he had obviously evidence that Gaddafi was attempting to kill him, like newspaper articles and things that were searching for my father. And that, you know, was offering big rewards if they could assassinate him or if they could find him and to bring him into the country. So anywho, thankfully, we made it to the US and my parents took us to where it made a lot of sense. If you're Muslim or you're Arab, they took us to Huntsville, Alabama. That is where we went. And you're probably thinking, what in the world were you guys doing there? The truth is that all the Libyans went to Lexington, Kentucky. That was like a way station. To this day, it's like little Libya. Lexington, Kentucky is like a way station for Libyan refugees. One guy was like, hey, Muhammad, I need some help. I'm going to go to Alabama. I can't be by myself. We got to be a wolf pack. And he's like, for you, anything, Mustafa. And he just took our family there. And that's what happened. That is what happened. And then that guy escaped north and we were stuck in the south. And my dad was like, low cost of living. What are we going to go? We can't go to New York. It's too expensive. We're just going to stay here. I'm like, oh. So that's what happened. And everything seemed, you know, like it was crazy because people looked at me like I was an alien, but they avoided me. You know, one of the ways that I kind of got away from, I would say like too much like I would say like violent intervention in my life was a lot of just ignoring me. But still, like in middle school, I tell this story, you know, on in my comedic skits, I tell this story. I don't know if you want me to tell it now, Tyler, or wait, but they really tortured me in middle school. Middle school it's like in elementary school, you can get away, I think, with a lot of things, but in middle school, it's hard to hide. I think it's because a lot of people are trying to score social points in middle school. Like you're so insecure that you're trying your best to like point the finger at this other person and make fun of them or score kind of cheap points that way. Instill fear in people, instill kind of like a social like ordering, like I'm cooler than you. Look at your stupid clothes, look at your stupid face, look at your stupid shoes, whatever it might be. And I was no different. So you know, for when I got to 6th grade, there was the other girl, she was Mustafa's daughter. So the other Muslim girl was the other Libyan girl in my school. And her name was Asma, but they called her Asma because it's easier when you're, you know, from the South. They just called you Asma because they can't pronounce Asma. And she ended up leaving, you know, in 6th grade. And so I was just like stuck from 6th to 8th grade in middle school. And they called me Yasma for years. Yasma. So my name is Yasmin, but because they were like just saw her and they were like, oh look, there's Asma, and then there's like her like weird sister Yasma. And I'm like, we're not sisters. This is not. Oh my god, it's not a thing. We're not even cousins. We're not even related. And and they kind of tortured me that way. And then the really popular girl thought I was like bad mouthing her in some way. It was just weird. It was like, oh, you said something under your breath. You did and would cuss me out and stuff. And I was like, oh my god, I'm never gonna ever survive this. And then they would, you know, they'd make fun of my clothing. They'd make fun of my features. Like I have very big eyebrows. I could like cage these guys at night and just like feed them, you know. Now they're cool. Now they're cool, but they were I love that. Thank you, Tyler, for not making me feel so alone in my eyebrow shape. But like, you know, the girls were like, oh my god, look at those caterpillars on her face. Like she looks like a timber wolf. Like she's so hairy. And I'm like, well, I'm Arab. Like, yes, that's what we are. But you know, when as a kid, you're just, you know, you don't want to be hairy. You don't want to be that hairy kid. And then one kid said that I had that I was a raghead. Like, oh, you look at you with that stupid towel on your head. You're a raghead. And these girls, I had just come out of PE. And I was walking and there was 2 girls and they were turning around. They kept like whispering to each other. And they're like, I was like, are you guys talking about me? They're like, no, no, Yasma, why? You're so weird. Why? I'm like, well, I think you're talking about me. You keep turning around and looking at me. They're like, yeah, well, whatever. Ryan, who was the bully, Ryan called you raghead. So who cares? And I was like, why would he say that? And they're like, because of your, and I'm like, I know why you think that he said that, but like, why? I don't even know him. Like, why would he say that? They're like, oh, it's not a big deal. He also called, right? Like, I'm a loser. Right? They're like, oh, it's not a big deal, whatever, Yasmin, because he called Carol and then they used a very terrible racial epithet against Jewish people. And I had never heard that word. I had never heard that word ever being referenced. It's a word that starts with a K. And like, I had never heard of that until I got to the South, unfortunately. And I will never repeat it. And I just remember thinking like, why would you say that about Carol? Carol was like the nicest girl. She was the only girl, one of the only girls that actually talked to me. She was like a band geek. She made little jewelry. She made little keychains and put it on her bag. Like she was just like, always smiling, always sweet, big glasses, and a beautiful Star of David that she wore around her neck to proudly say that she was a Jewish person. And you know, she was probably the only Jewish girl like in all of Alabama, let alone like this school, right? But she was definitely the only Jewish girl in this school. And I just remember thinking like, this is crazy. These people will never be stopped until I stop them. Like, you want to make fun of me, you want to say bad crap about me, that's fine. But you want to talk about this girl's religion like this when she's the nicest girl? Oh no, that's it. And then it was like the voice of my father. He's always told me, you just be you, just be yourself, be unique, just do it, just do the right thing. And I would always be like, just do it is a Nike ad, Dad, but okay, fine. You know, he's like, it's a good message. Listen to the message, forget the Nike check. And so I was like, okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. So I just remember thinking like, all I could hear was the voice of my father just echoing in my head, like, just do it, just do the right thing. And so I just moved those girls. I was like, excuse me. And I went up the stairs to where Ryan was sitting with his jock friends, and he had a tray of food on the table, and I picked up that tray, boom, and I just slammed it on the table, and you could hear a pin drop in the lunchroom. Everyone stopped eating, and you could hear ooh roaring through the lunchroom. And I looked at him, and he had that point had mashed potatoes and gravy on his face from me slamming that lunch tray. He had Salisbury steak. I mean, that's how we eat in the South. I mean, it was just like green beans. It was gross. And you could see you could see his jaw come a little bit. He's scared. I could see fear in his eyes, right? And I just remember thinking, like, in that moment, like how powerful I am in that moment. So it really mattered that what I said was piercing, final, and true. That's what I was thinking. Like, it's got to be piercing, it's got to be final, it can't happen again, and it's got to be freaking true. Yes, go ahead.
I really want you to also talk about how your dad had decided you needed to learn to assimilate into America and how that blended into this story too. Because I think that's one of
That's true. That's true. And that's exactly how the story on NBC depicts it. Should I do that now? Or do you want me to finish this story? What do you want me to do?
Yeah, I would love you to talk about how your dad thought it was the best way to learn to be American.
Okay, so when I first came to the United States, my parents obviously were trying their best to tell me like, hey, we're not on vacation anymore. Like, this is it. This is our final destination. I was like, America? And they're like, yes, this is it. This is what this is where we were going. And I was like, okay. They're like, look, if you watch the USA Network, you will learn to be American faster because it's red, white, blue. And I don't, this was like 1990. So I don't know if you were watching a lot of USA Network in 1990. It was a lot of inappropriate programming for a 5-year-old, but like every morning at 7 a.m, it was WWF wrestling. And it was all the greats. It was Hulk Hogan. It was Bret the Hitman Hart. It was Randy Savage. It was The Undertaker, right? Like a little bit goth, but I was into him. It's fine. I thought the whole franchise was exactly how I was going to connect as an American, right? So I was like hopped up, trying to get on the bus at like 7 a.m. My parents were like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm going to hit someone with a 2x4. It's how I'm going to connect. And they're like, don't hit. And they're like, don't hit anybody, please. No hitting or hating. I'm like, I don't hate or hit. Just get me on the bus. I was pumped. And I get on the bus and I get to kindergarten. And I was in ESL, so I was in English as a second language, right? So I was watching the USA Network to try to learn to be American faster and to like assimilate to the culture and learn the language. And I was in ESL. And then sometimes they'd take me out of his ESL to like take me to the regular kindergarten room. So I was like, I had a very small class in ESL. And then when I went to the kindergarten room, there was all these new faces. And there was just one little girl that I just thought, this girl, I want her to be my best friend. Her name was Teresa. So I did what was natural. And I got on top of the desk and I body slammed her to the floor. Oh my God. And you could see poor Teresa's face. She was like, why? Why did you do this? Why, Yasmin? And I was like, I don't know. I can't hear you. Oh, yeah. I was sent to the principal's office where I was promptly diagnosed with ADHD. And, you know, when I got there, my mom, they told my mom she needs drugs. Your daughter, she's crazy, has ADHD, you know. And my mom was like, say no to drugs. Say no to drugs. So she did not put me on any medication at the time, but I definitely had a little bit of a touch of ADHD. But wrestling was everything to me. I mean, those were heroes in my opinion. Those were people that were like
mine too. I loved Hulk.
He was amazing. Hulkmania, brother.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Eat your vitamins. Say your prayers. Eat your vitamins, brother.
That's right. And he's just like walking around with the American flag. I remember I even got like an American flag headscarf because I just wanted to be like him. I wanted to be like Hulk. And like yellow and red were like my jam, like those colors.
Yeah.
And yes, ketchup. And I had his like action figure doll and everything. So yeah, I mean, I always saw Hulk Hogan as the guy who like stood for truth and like for justice. Like I really saw him like that. Like he was a man that was going to stand up to any of the, you know, the evil of the Undertaker or any other like, you know, villain from WWF.
I feel like he almost should have been the billboard for anti-bullying in a way.
I know,
you know, it's like he always felt like the guy that should have jumped out of the locker or something like that and saved the person, right?
Yes. Like I was thinking about it, like the you know, like in The Simpsons where the Kool-Aid man comes out and goes, "Oh yeah,
yeah, absolutely."
I feel like that should have been Hulk Hogan. Actually, that jumps through a wall.
I'm still hoping he might do that. We actually got to do a trailer once in my last business. And so Hulk Hogan was on the trailer. And so here I am, my life, you know, hero is just like 80 feet, not that big, but, you know, tall and in person in front of me. I'm like, can you believe this? This is my job. Right now I'm putting my childhood hero on a trailer. You know, that's kind of cool.
You're like, this is how far I've come. I am sharing him with the world. Yeah, which is
yeah. I got your back, Hulkster. Yeah. But I thought that I thought that story was so amazing, and I didn't mean to cut off your bullying story. I want you to go back into it. But the framework of what I was picturing the whole time was this, like, my motivation is a wrestler, and I'm going to use that. So I'm going to let you take over.
Yes. And like wrestlers, I feel like, you know, they have to instill fear, but do so in a respectful way. Again, that's like final and true, you know, final and true and like piercing. It's got to pierce you, right? So I looked at Ryan, and he's got food all over his face, and I could see his jaw coming unclenched. I could see the fear in his eyes. I could feel the power that I had for the first time ever. I've never felt power like that in my entire life. And I looked at him.
That's top rope power.
Top rope power. Like, I don't need to do any tap ins. I don't need to tap anyone in because I'm ready.
Nope.
I look at him, and he was like, he started trying to talk, and I was like, shut up, Ryan. It's my turn to talk. Listen up. I heard what you said about Carol. I heard what you said about me. I heard you called her a terrible name, made fun of her Star of David. I heard you call me a raghead. Let me tell you how it's going to be moving forward. First of all, we only show you respect, and we show you nothing but dignity, and we protect you. And that's exactly what we deserve and expect in return. Got it? He's like, yeah. And I was like, and if I so much as here as you touch a hair on Carol's head, and if I had hair, if you touched anything that looked like, you know what I mean? If you touch my head, anything, if I had him, you're going to have to answer to me. Got it? And he was like, yes, crying. And the whole lunchroom, ooh. And then I took a napkin and I threw it in his face. And I was like, clean yourself off. You're embarrassing. And you better believe after that, they were like, there's a new girl named Yasmin. Have you met her? Her name is Yasmin. And I'm like, I'm not new. Been here the whole time. but my name is Yasmin. Thank you. Put some respect on my name. It's Yasmin. Yeah. That was the beginning.
I love that. I absolutely, and I was cheering for you the whole time when I heard about that, you know, and so, and then I'm just picturing this like alter ego that you've built, you know, the Hulkster's like, you know, in your body for a moment, and you're telling these bad guys what's up.
I was channeling the Hulk, and I was channeling my father, you know, who is just like as heroic of a figure in my eyes, someone I could actually see.
No kidding.
Touch. Yeah.
And this makes me go into energy systems.
Yeah.
And you had a certain energy to you, because I remember Tyler said, well, what does a person who's not as strong do? There's a strength in us.
Yeah.
It's internal in us.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're smaller, if you're not as strong, because if you're strong here, you win.
Yeah. Well, and you proved that to Ryan. You beat Ryan. There in every way, shape, and form. You won that belt.
I won the belt, and what was so amazing, I mean,
raise the hand.
Yeah, exactly. Come on.
Yeah.
TKO.
Yeah.
That was a TKO. It wasn't like a KO.
Yeah.
Technical knockout. Yeah, and I was just gonna say, Cliff, that what you said is so powerful, because I did not just prove that power to Tyler. I proved it to myself. I had never felt that energy coursing through, because when they were making fun of me and saying all these terrible things about what I believed in or how I looked or how lame I was, I obviously couldn't speak English. They thought I couldn't speak English. They thought I couldn't even speak, you know, that I wasn't an American. I remember those things really hurt, but I didn't even know how to defend myself. But the minute that they said something bad about someone else who I perceived as wonderful and unable maybe to protect herself because she didn't know, she didn't have the full knowledge of what was said about her, it felt like I could do it because I could stand up for someone else. And that made me stand up for myself.
Yasmin is the ultimate sheepdog at this point in her life. We talk about sheepdog, you know, and that's the person that watches out for the sheep. Yes. Unfortunately, when we give the analogy here, sheep is more the people that are being bullied, and the wolves are the ones taking advantage, right? And there's one protector, the sheepdog. And so if I had to give you a ring name, like Sheepdog.
Yes. Yes. And they're always brother. They're always so pretty too. They're like those like black and white, like little like dogs. That's what I say a sheepdog in my mind. That's like, they're like these like kind of like colliers. I don't know what they're called. Yeah. They're like cuddly. They're just adorable. They're like black and white usually. And they're like, ruff, ruff, ruff. And then like the sheep are like, yes, we got it. You know, they're all in order.
But they get at those wolves like no other. They chase off those wolves.
So brave. They're so brave. I would love to be called sheepdog.
Yeah. Yes.
That so that was a definitive win for you, obviously.
Huge.
And this is I mean, but this didn't last totally, right?
It didn't.
That win. I mean, it's just like Hulk. Hulk had to reinvent his act, you know, every now and again, and he had to venture back in the ring and prove who he was, you know, and you've proven it. But then that starts to fade, right? And then you want to talk a little bit about how that went down?
Yeah, it started to fade. So middle school is kind of like a small pond. And then you get into a bigger pond, and that's high school. So I will just, you know, just kind of like explain, like, you know, middle school, I had respect. Like Ryan became my friend actually after that. And he would like look at me. He's like, no, Yasmin, you're the shit. And I was like, what did you say? He's like, no, it's a good thing. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that's all right. You know, like he was a little bit scared, but totally in like respect and admiration. And it was really important because it kept all the other bullies at bay. And then they kind of wanted to be my friends before I made fun of them. Cause you know how middle school is just like, you always got to like strike first before before someone makes fun of you. But when I got to high school, that middle school plus like 7 other middle schools fed into one large high school of over 3,300 students. So 3,300 students, high school, I'm 14 at this point. And I go in and I get bullied from day one. First, it was from these kids that were like, why do you look like that? Are you a nun? Like, what is this? And I was like, no, I'm not a nun. They're like, are you Mary, mother of Jesus? Like, who are you trying to be? And I'm like, no, I revere her, but that's not, no, it's like, no, not exactly, you know? And I was like, I really respect nuns. Actually, it's like one of the reasons why I wore a headscarf when I was really young. Like, I came in as a refugee, and like one of the first people who helped us were Catholic Charities, and this beautiful nun, you know, she took care of me. And I remember I was so cold because Egypt was a lot warmer than the United States, and it was cold, and she washed my feet and she put on these warm socks. And I just remember thinking, like, look how beautiful this woman is. Like, she's so beautiful. Like, all she is service. Like, all she is no ego. And then I realized how different she was from my mom, who was full of judgmental ego. Love you, Mom, but you know. But then they looked exactly the same. And I remember thinking, like, wow, like, I want to be like these women. Like, I want to look like this. But I just remember, like, people didn't like that. People did not like that in high school. They were like, oh, who are you trying to be? You know what you should be? You should be Christian. Don't, you know, remember, like, Jesus is your Lord and Savior, and until you accept him, you will never be. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I mean, I don't accept him as my Lord, but like, I see him as a prophet. And they're like, no, that's not enough. And then it got physical. Like, one guy like tackled me to the floor. This was in weeks of like of being, you know, a high school student, and I didn't understand. He was like kind of sitting on top of me, and he was like, "Don't you understand? You know, there's still time. He's coming back." And I was like, "If you don't take your hands off me, like, the police will be coming back to get you. Like, back up, bro. Like, like, let's just like back up." And I remember I had to push him pretty hard off of me. A girl tried to pull off my headscarf. I had to give her a black eye. I had to do it, Cliff. I had to. I didn't have an option. I
had to go to the
eye. I had to do it. Black eye for 2 weeks. I never got suspended. No one said a word to me because they knew that she shouldn't have done that. This other kid, I'm drinking water. I'm drinking water on the water fountain, and he lifts my headscarf and like basically tries to like grope my hair. And then I did this like spin move. I grabbed him by the neck and I choked him out on the water fountain. I turned around, I choked him on the water fountain. I was like, "Don't you touch me ever again." And he's like, got it. And it sucked. I don't like being in physical altercations with people, you know, but like Hulk Hogan, you know, he doesn't want the physical fight, but he will bring it to you if you bring it to his doorstep. You know, he's going to bring it. So it just got really nasty. It got really nasty in high school. Yeah, sorry, Cliff, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, you did. I just wanted to say the fact that you gave someone a black eye and it wasn't you both sit down and you both get in trouble. You know, I think that was handled very appropriately to say like, yeah, you don't do that to other people.
Yeah.
Yes. It was so cool. The South was pretty cool in that way. Like, y'all, it's like, well, you barking up the wrong tree now, didn't you? And that was it. Like, bless your heart, but not sure you should have done that one. Yeah. And that was it. Also, the teacher just gave her like a side look. There was a girl named Lauren, and that was it. That was the end of that. No one got in trouble. No one had to go to the principal's office. It was like it was dealt with. It got dealt with. Yeah. So it was pretty intense. Yeah.
One piece to that too is you said the South was really cool that way, and I know our brains can sometimes generalize things, and we'll throw the baby out with the bathwater. And instead of like, hey, let's see where the common ground is. Let's see where we're good here, where we're good here, where we're good here. And then we can also look at, okay, what can we work on? What can we do? How can we put things together? So I'm loving your story and what you've been through and what you've overcame and what your experiences were too.
Yeah. And this, Yasmin, I mean, this is probably one of the harder parts to get into, but this wasn't even the tip of the iceberg yet, because then there was a world event, right? And now it became even harder to be different, right?
Yeah, so September 11th shifted everything. So I was able to kind of fend off people the first year of high school and kind of into the second year. And the more kind of physical altercations I got into, people kind of backed up, and then even the people that I had gotten physical altercations with would actually defend me. And they're like, "No, she will tear your shit up. Don't mess with her." That's what they would say. She will tear you up. Don't mess with her.
So they became your tag team partner. It's amazing how much of this is life, the WWE. Like you're enemies, and then all of a sudden you're friends combating evil.
Exactly true. I swear to God. And they're like, like yesterday we were enemies. Today we forge an alliance. Yeah, it was like that. And they were protecting me, and they were like, "Nah, you don't want to mess with her. Like, you're barking up the wrong tree." And I do think I do applaud the South for being a place, I think, where people understand that there are consequences to your actions, and people they kind of hold each other kind of accountable. And there's society, whether even parents, like I just see parents like disciplining other kids and their parents being okay with that, because that's a part of the village in the South, like raising your children, instead of being like, don't you talk to my child, don't lift a finger, don't you raise your voice, So there was a lot of that. So I feel like some of there was like a little bit of societal policing that I think is allowed in a way that is not maybe outside of traditional, I would say like more traditional or more conservative societies. So when September 11th happened, part of being a part of a traditional conservative society is, on the flip side, that means that there is some, there's some ideas that get promulgated and catch fire, and ideas that are hard to overcome. So I remember, when September 11th happened, it was a really, really it was an awful, awful tragedy. I was sitting in my advanced English class, and I was just, like looking at this happening on the television. They turned it on. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. And I just remember thinking in that moment, just please don't be Muslim. Like, please, God, don't have this person who is doing this to be Muslim. And God, is this the end of the world? Is this Armageddon? If so, like, please protect us all. I remember thinking, I hope that there's no one dies from this. I hope they can save everyone from this. I just remember having all these kind of thoughts in my mind. And a lot of folks tune in to certain people on TV talking about what happened. And there was a lot, and I don't want to ever point any fingers, but there were some people who got on TV and said, Muslims are, they're all terrorists. Look what they've done to our country. They don't even believe in a God. They believe in a moon god. This is a death cult. They're all sleeper cells. These people will only do you harm. Don't you dare trust a Muslim. If you've got one in your community, report them to the police. I mean, really terrible things that were being said on television, and I just remember having to deal with that. And really the students who were different like me, stood up for me, and we kind of formed an alliance. It was like, hey, like, do you happen to be like an Asian American? Like, come closer. Like, oh my God, like, you're Filipino. Oh wait, like, oh God, like, you are what? Like, you're half Puerto Rican? That's enough flavor. Come here, come into the circle. We're gonna huddle together, So it was like all the different kids sort of came together at that time. And they defended me, they put their bodies in between me and those people, which was kind of amazing to me. Like, they put their own self into physical harm. They put their bodies, and that's what people need to do. I just want to say this, Tyler, like, that's what people need to do when you're standing up for someone. We're talking about bystander intervention, and kids are being bullied or being treated badly. Like, oftentimes it means that you have to put your physical safety on the line and literally stand physically between the aggressor and the person who is being bullied. And I received that from one student.
Well, and that's, is there a harder place to be on the planet than Alabama at that time frame as a kid? I mean, that in your circumstances, that's not an easy thing to do. And we've shown over and over again, it is this third party, that can come in and, kind of be the savior of everything. And your dad had some advice around this too, right? When this happened?
He sure did. So I got home on September 11th. So that happened on September 11th. I just want you to know, like, that it was a Filipino kid who stood up for me, and he's like, y'all known her since middle school. I don't know. And he had a Southern accent. Y'all known her since middle school. I don't know why y'all are, saying this about her. And I, if you have a problem with her, you have a problem with me. And like, she's done nothing but be kind to you. And, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself for saying those things out loud. Those are not true. And that's full of hate. And it's full of hate. We don't even know what happened. And like, how is she responsible? I mean, he spoke so beautifully and articulately. When I got home, both my parents were home, which was crazy because they are refugees in this country, and they both worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, just to make ends meet. And I saw my dad's head kind of poke out, and he was like sad. And then I saw my mom's head poke out above his, and she was sad. And they were like, today is a terrible day, huh? And I'm like, yeah, it's a terrible. And they're like, for the entire country, but for you in particular. And I was like, well, yeah. And And they were like, look, the headscarf thing that you've been doing here. Look, we had a good run. We don't need to keep doing this. We're feeling so guilty about the Alabama thing that we did to you. Just please take it off. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? They're like, yes, please. We just want you to be safe. And this is a bad time. And we feel very guilty that we brought you to Alabama. I'm like, in this moment, it was so weird because my dad had been my hero, my entire life. Yeah. And he especially just represented someone who was really just like had his eye on the ball at all times to do what was right, not what was convenient. Yeah. And it was so weird as like a 15-year-old to see my father kind of broken. And it's just a weird place to be in as a 15-year-old. And it was like in that moment, I felt like I had to protect him. I had to protect him. So I found a strength in me that I didn't even know it was there. And what's so odd about this, and I tell this all the time, is like my dad was the most religious and spiritually aware person that I knew. So like he's such a religious gangster that like when I would call him, right, I'd be like, hey dad, how are you? He'd just say, know your place in the universe, and then hang up the phone in my right? I'd be like, hey dad, how's it going? He was like, the cosmos, that's what's going. Where are you going? And then just hang up the phone in my face, right? I got a scholarship. I got really excited. It's like, hey, Dad, I got a scholarship. And he was like, oh, you're so great. God is greater. And he would just hang up the phone in my face. So it was so weird to see him in this situation. I felt a strength that that was reminiscent of when I stood up for Carol. And I felt like I was standing up for every Muslim woman in that moment. I just said, look, Dad, like if I don't speak up for Muslim women, who will? Who will? Yeah. If you turn on the TV, it's just black and blue blobs. They don't even have faces. Yeah. Their faces are like there's literally no voice that's given them. Like I have to speak up for Muslim women. I have to wear my headscarf. This is who I am. This is an identity that I've chosen. One that is in line with Catholic nuns who I revere and respect, and my own mother who wore it later on in her life. And my dad just like went from 0 to 1,000 in a minute. He like looked off into the distance and he was like, I knew you were my daughter. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And he was like, you will be president. I'm like, Dad, I can't be president. There's a constitution. I wasn't even born here. I was born in Cairo. He's like, of your class. I was like, what? He's like, you will become president of your class. It was like an idea that he concocted in the moment. And he was like, I want you to become the president of everything. And I was like, oh my God. And so I just like, yeah, of course. And I ran off and started crying about this thing that I promised my father in a vulnerable state. So my brother's in the other room. My brother's name is Hussein. We came in 1990. So do you think that he was bullied just a little bit? Poor kid. He'd gone through a lot. Yeah. He graduated from that same high school and he had been invisible. So he left before September 11th happened. He graduated in 1999. So he was like, how are you going to do this? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to do this. He's like, well, it's gonna be bad. And like, why would you promise Dad this crazy thing? And I was like, it was a vulnerable moment. How are we going to get out of this? He's like, no, how are you going to get out of this? This is not our problem. This is the EU problem. I was like, come on, man. I'm like, I need your help. And he was like, well, do you know who's running? And I was like, well, there's this one guy that's been announced his election from day one. He's announced his candidacy and his win from the minute that we started school in August. So in August of 2001, where there was a student named Mike Green, and Mike Green was very popular. He played multiple sports. He had gotten into Duke, early decision. He was like a scholar athlete. He wanted to be a doctor. By the way, today he is a doctor, lost all his hair. Poetic justice? I think so. Anyways, sorry, Cliff, but you know what I mean. So anyhow, so this guy was kind of, he was a towering figure. He was like 6'2", and people were scared of him. I was scared of him. He always was like, yeah, all right, dweeb, all right, dummy. Like he was like kind of like a bullying figure. And I just remember thinking, oh my God. And he was like, hey guys, my name is Mike Green. I'm obviously going to win presidency. Like I'm going to throw the coolest prom. See you guys later. I mean, it was just, it was so arrogant. It was like, of course I'm going to win. Yeah. So I told my brother this, and he was like, wow, he sounds like a good old boy. He sounds like everything you're not. I'm like, great, thank you. Yes. He was like, okay, well then you have to celebrate the thing that you have that no one else has. And I'm like, a headscarf? What does he mean by that? And he was like, look. You know how to rap. You're going to rap your election speech. I'm like, that's the plan? He's like, yes. You know how we make funny raps to like popular songs? You're going to do the same thing, but one way. Like it's a one-way rap battle. You're the only one waging war. And I'm like, I don't think we should be talking about waging war, Hussein, right about now. But okay. So he was like, just remember, you got to diss your opponent in the first 30 seconds. So we did this. So I had done other things. And if you watch this show, you'll see the other major thing that I did. I did this other thing where I convinced people to wear headscarves to school, which was kind of a big deal. But I get on stage and I'm like, I have a boombox. I'm kind of feeling myself. I had made tinfoil chains. I made like a medallion and it said Yo Yo Yasmin on there. And I had like a ski cap on. It was like a piece of paper that said MC Yasmin on it. And then I put the boombox on the stage, and it's like, again, these are like 3,000 students that are sitting in this auditorium, and the music goes off. Dun, 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 ding, dun, 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 dun. Yasmin, baby. Dun, 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 dun. I want you to stop, collaborate, and listen. Gris is back with a brand new election. This school's got a hold of me tight. Ask me any questions. I won't bite. White is the color of my scarf. Green is the color when you barf. And then I pointed to my green. Who started crying.
Amazing.
Promptly started crying. And you could just see the look on his face like, why would you do this to me? And I was like, sorry, eat it. And then he goes up there. His election speech was like, I don't know why you should vote for me. I'm going to vote for her too. And he just like sits down. That was his election speech. It was a defeat. So I ended up sweeping the election 2 months after September 11th. Like this was in November. I ended up winning, which was incredible. It was like the largest turnout ever. And then all the pods wanted me to do it for all the teachers and like everybody. I performed that maybe like 17 times that day to all the different pods because it was like a mix of different rap songs. So
I truly don't think Vince McMahon could have wrote this better. You know, like the way this all went down, you know, like it could have been choreographed, you know, and it wouldn't have went down as well.
Thank you so much. Remember Vince? Oh my God. Let's get ready to run, man. Yeah.
What I find so brave, and, you know, I kind of alluded to this in the intro, is like some people would just say, hey, you know, give up the headscarf, you know, blend into society more. And what I really took from this is it wasn't like, this is part of who you are, yes, but also at the same time, you by going out there and continuing to do what you've always done, you're showing people, look, I'm a normal person. I'm a good person, in fact. This is like, I have to introduce myself to you and be, you know, it's kind of, I think about this when we're traveling all over the world. It's like, as an American, I need to be on, you know, not best behavior. I need to be a shining beacon for what an American is, right? Because I'm over there being an ambassador for my country. And I can give these people that I meet a good perception of me or a bad perception of me, you know, and it might be one little pot of group, but that continues, right? And so to me, that's what you're doing. You were being really brave and showing people, you know, like their misconceptions, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think wearing a headscarf in particular during that time is an attempt to say, I don't have to apologize for who I am. I get to show you who I am. I get to show you. I don't have to apologize for the actions of people that I have nothing to do with, that don't represent me at any level. So I just feel like it's so important that when you choose to stand in your beliefs and to be someone of belief and to be someone of conviction of whatever you feel strongly about, you actually give permission for other people to see your humanity against all odds. You give permission for people to see their own humanity against all odds. And then that's when I think you can really build connection with people and have them respect you. I want people to respect me, even if they don't like me.
Well, and deep down, they're going to see who you are, right? And you're a good person. You're standing up for those that cannot stand up for themselves, even when you don't have, you know, the Hulk Hogan tools, so to speak. You know, like Hulk Hogan didn't have a tiny little assistant that was rambunctious, like grabbing everybody and taking advantage of him, even though he didn't have the big muscles and stuff, you know. But if there were that sidekick, you know, that's you. You know, you're still fighting injustices. And I believe that you should wear, you know, every day who you are. You know, like if you're actually trying to be a good person in life and people see that, then I think you're doing something right, right? I was telling Cliff this morning, one of my favorite compliments I've ever gotten was I was talking to this couple at my business a couple years ago, and they said to me at one point out of nowhere, they're like, "You're a Christian, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And that's a comfortable label for me. But to me, it didn't mean religion. To me, it meant being a good person, right? They saw something into me and they labeled that as Christianity, and I'm comfortable with that as well. But more so, it was just like, you seem like a really good person. So if I'm waking up every day and my actions are to try to be a good person and people are seeing that, what a better compliment, and that's the way I feel in general is like, religion is more about being a good person, treating others with respect. Taking care of other people, that defending people that can't defend themselves. That's what this program is about, So,
it's so funny that funny that you say that, Cliff, because I had a similar experience in my adult life, like in my career. So I'm an attorney. I was working as an attorney in public service my whole life, my whole career. I've been in that arena in the public sector. And there was a young woman who dressed in a certain kind of way. So she would dress, I would say, in a way that like maybe offended some people because it was provocative. Okay. So she'd wear very, very like high heels and like maybe short skirts or whatever. And she'd wear this to the office. And I was like, who cares? In my perspective, I'm like, where do you, boo? Like, I really believe that people should just be given the right to look and be who they authentically are, because that's how you give people respect as human beings. Okay. Yeah. So after work, we're at this event, as these like restaurants or whatever. And the supervisor who's like leading the office is just tearing into this woman, calling her a slut, calling her a whore, calling her all these words that was like, as a woman, why do you think it's okay to say that about another woman in front of everybody, in front of like male colleagues? It's like, that's the kind of stuff that gives permission for other people to cross boundaries with women. And it was really infuriating to me. And everyone is laughing about it. And and her stripper shoes. And I looked at them and I go, would you say this if she was right here? And they all stopped talking. I was like, no, really? Like, would you be able to say this to her face? Because I don't know anybody who's a more dedicated worker than this woman. I don't know anybody who clocks out early and leaves late like this woman. And you should really, really, really be ashamed of yourself. That's what I said. Yeah. To a boss.
Good for you.
To a boss. Well, let me tell you something. It got back to her. And so it got back to this woman who they had said all this stuff to. And it was in the bathroom, right? She caught me in the bathroom. I come back. I was so angry. I left the restaurant. I came back to the office. I went to the bathroom just to pour water on myself because I was hot. Okay, I was heated. Yeah. So I poured water on my face, and she comes in and she's like, I heard what you said about me. I heard that you defended me. And I wanted you to know that you're a Muslim. That's what she said. She said, you're a Muslim. And I was like, yeah, I am. She's like, no, I don't think you understand what I mean by that. She said, someone gave me a Quran in 1984. She's like, I still have the Quran in my work drawer. I still have that Quran. And I read it from time to time. And I think, like, this is what it means to, like, stand up for what's right. And she was like, I think you stand up for what's right. And she gave me the biggest hug. And she was like, no one would ever know that about me. No one would ever know that about me. And she said, thank you for standing up for me when no one else would. And it was the first time, I'm being honest with you, Tyler, it's the first time that someone who was not Muslim was using that term, like, you're a Muslim, in a positive way. You see how when they said that you're a Christian, you automatically knew it means I'm a good person. My fear is that when children are called, you're a Muslim, it's a nasty derogatory term. And do you see how she just flipped it on its head? She was like, no, you're a real Muslim. And it was like, I felt for the first time, like, this is what I want my kids to feel. This is it.
Was there a second there where you're like, wait a minute, what's she coming at me like?
Yes.
Did you almost get like,
of course. Of course, I was like, oh man, she called me a Muslim like this, like in a bathroom. Like, I don't even know anywhere to go. Like, is she gonna fight me? Like, you know what I mean? That's where my brain went. Defense mode right away.
I feel like you're the ultimate like sheepdog in life. I feel like you do it in you did it in your adolescence. You did it in high school. You're continuing to do it in your law career. Stand up for the little guy. I mean, that's what this show is about too. Is like standing up for the little guy. And you almost should be running this show.
No,
you're the sheepdog.
Oh my god, y'all are sheepdogs. I'm sure. In your first of all, by doing this is shepherding. What you're doing right now is shepherding. This whole the whole concept of the show is an attempt to say it's going to be okay, and there are people who are like you, and they made it, and so are you. You're gonna make it.
You need to have an extremely powerful mind to combat groups. You absolutely do. Like you did defending the woman. I mean, it's proven. I don't want to go too deep into the psychology, but there's a study, and like basically everybody's involved in the study, right? Except one person, and they're in filling out applications. And as they're filling out these applications, and the one person that's the subject, the fire alarm goes off, right? And so nobody in the room moves because they're in on the study. The one person doesn't move because nobody in the room moves, right? And they step this up and they put smoke under the door and firemen running down the hallway. And the point is, everybody's paying so much attention to the group that people die this way actually too, this herd mentality. So the point is, it takes a lot more bravery in a group and a lot more conscientious of who you are as a being to stand up in those moments, right? So, I mean, for you to have the strength to do that, I think people fail to grasp what bravery it takes to stand up to the group.
And I don't think people know how deeply powerful it is to stand up for someone when they're not present. It's so powerful. It's powerful, obviously, to stand up for someone when they are present, and maybe you can actually like see it in real time, like putting your body between them and someone who wishes them harm. It's a whole other thing to stand up for someone when they're not there. So I just want to tell kids out there, I want to tell adults out there that if someone is saying or doing something terrible about somebody behind their back, please have the backbone and the strength to know that when you do something good, it is the single most powerful thing that you can probably do for someone and not have them there. Because you're doing it really and putting yourself in risk of like social points loss and people not liking you, being passed up for the promotion, whatever it might be. But just know that that's the universe sending you a message that these people are not your people. They're not good for you.
I agree 100%. And it takes so much strength. I'm going to tell a story. Cliff and I talk about this story. He likes this story. And so I happen upon this group of people, right? And there are a bunch of kids. And there's this one kid, and he's on the balcony of this building. And he's looking like he's going to jump into the pool, right? Man. The problem is the pool is way too high. There's no way. Like, he is paralyzed. He's dead if he jumps off the building. There's a crowd, I kid you not, 300-400 people, and they're all, do it. Do it. I walked up and I was like, don't do it. I'm screaming, don't do it. You're going to hurt yourself. Like, this is way too high. And he heard my voice through this crowd and he actually walked back in. I almost had the whole crowd mob me, right? It doesn't mean I'm any sort of superhuman person, but I try to be really conscious of things that aren't right and things that are group speak, right? And the only way, and it's not because I'm this hero, it's because I've trained my brain. It's like, you've got to see what group speak is. You've got to see what people can do in groups. And if you see something that is not good for somebody, you got to speak up. That's and you got to train your brain for these things.
That's right. That's the power. That's like, I think, true bravery and courage, and also like power and strength of character.
Yeah. And I'll say, Yasmin, I'm loving everything that I'm hearing. The biggest thing I see, there's a hero inside of you. And what you're speaking on, it's like there's a hero inside every single one of us.
Yes.
And there's a saying, Satan speaks fast and God speaks slow. And it's easy to just listen. It's easy to not do anything.
Yeah.
That's the easy route.
Totally.
But when you do something, that actually becomes the new easy. That's the funny thing.
Yeah.
So the first time you stand up, you've already built a new muscle. And you help others build that muscle as well.
I've got to add something to that because I think that's so key.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's the thing too. It feels easy, right? Like we're talking about, to step away from that. And I'll tell a quick story because I think stories help. But I'm in campus one day, this was years ago, and I see this kind of I hate to call him a nerdy kid, but I just want to give you a visualization,
nerdy.
You know, like kind
Sure.
of what you perceive to be as
And we,
a nerdy
and we
kid.
love we love nerds. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Love that.
And and the cool kid, you know, he looked like a cool kid. He goes up and he rams his skateboard in the back of the nerdy kid, you know, and not on purpose, but once again, he didn't even apologize for doing this. And I'm watching this, and still to this day, this was 7 years ago, I still beat myself up about it. I'm like, why didn't you say anything?
Yeah.
You had power in that moment to say something and not get in a fight with the kid, but at least say, look, you can't even apologize to the kid. You just nailed him, you know, and the look of sadness on the kid's face, it still haunts me. So easy, quick decisions in the moment. I completely agree with what Cliff is saying, but how long is that going to haunt you? And it should.
Yeah.
This should haunt me. I should have said something, but now I'll say something next time.
Yes,
if
you
I see
will.
it.
Because you know, like you said, it's like a muscle, and we get stronger and stronger when we use it.
And I think you got to really practice that, especially when it comes to groups and battling the bullies of a group. You know, I think you've got to
Totally.
be, you know, it's like,
I mean, I
very
had to leave.
conscientious.
I had to leave that office. I mean, I'm telling you, I had to leave that office because it was so toxic. And I just remember my face getting red while I was doing, because I was so angry. And you could see everyone kind of like, you know, like when you're in social situations and everyone's darting their eyes away from you because it's like so awkward. Like they were like, is she really like saying this like in front of everybody? She's not playing it cool. But I was like, I'd rather be uncool, actually. Thanks. Peace out, players.
It's amazing that people can't see. We all watch the Saturday morning specials, and we know what a bully is, and we know what's not cool and what's not fair, you know, to people. But we still allow it to happen, right?
So the other thing that I love too is you're complimenting me, complimenting Tyler, complimenting Martin, who's doing the camera stuff. You like being a ray of sunshine for people.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
and I 100% feel it, because I have like my ray of sunshine hose, and I just want to spray everybody with my ray of sunshine. And sometimes it's a little too much, so I got to kind of like, okay, let me sprinkle it on them so they can get used to it and know that here it comes.
Aggressive love, aggressive. Yes.
But I love how you show up. And what was interesting, my audience has actually pushed me to show up more. You know, they pushed me to show up more. And I hear your story, and it's like, for a moment, your dad, your hero, you're 15, you're a kid, you're 15. And for that moment, you're like, I got this, Dad. Like it's giving me goosebumps, because there may be a time where I'm worried, I'm scared, I'm fearful. And my kid shows up because of all the teachings that I showed him along the way.
Yeah.
The teachings show up exponentially. And in one moment, just like Eminem, you talked about Eminem, one moment, you have one moment to do something to change everybody's stars. Because I go, we're all statistics.
Yep.
Every single one of us is a statistic.
Yep.
And the truth is, what if everyone can win?
Yes.
And I just put that in people's head. What if everyone can win?
Yeah.
Yes. That's it, Cliff. And what if we all saw the good in each other first? What if we just assumed the best in people and did not fear them, but instead celebrated them? If we could just take a moment to do that. And it also means that when they go out of line, that's love. When you say, this is not going to work. This is not going to work for me.
100%.
This is not how we act. That's a form of love and mercy for the other person. Whether you're disciplining your children, obviously, not to be pejorative, but like when you're having to spank someone publicly and be like, no, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable behavior. Would you do that? Would you really do that if the tables were turned? If someone was treating you like this, would you want to be treated this way? I think that if we could just get there, then we would see like, oh, that's actually like me celebrating the humanity in the other person by trying to give them a talking to.
Sure.
100%.
And it should be appreciated by the right person, because the chances are that person that was saying all these bad things about your coworker, nobody checked them on it. Nobody body slammed them. Nobody checked them on it. Nobody called them barf, you know, in high school.
That's right. No one called them barf. No one vomited on their ego.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I asked the question to Cliff, a couple episodes ago because this guy had called me a fool, you know? And so like, it was kind of a turn of phrase, fool. And I was really conflicted because I was wondering how I should have handled that situation. But now reflecting through the episodes, there was a perfect way to handle the situation. It wasn't to let it go. It was to say, look, my friend, I'm not a fool. It's not fair that you call me a fool. You know, like I've done nothing but respect you. So there is no reason for you to call me this fool, you know? And I think that's the way we need to handle it more often is like, you're a group of people, you're talking bad about this woman. It's like, hey, do you realize what you're doing? You know, let's think about this. And just like we're going back to the kids again, like we're trying to teach the kids to do you know how this makes me feel? We almost need to slow down as adults sometimes and say, do you know how that's going to make her feel? Knowing this, she might not be here right now, but somebody's going to let this loose. And you know how that's going to make her feel, you know? And most people in this world will care.
Yeah,
yes.
100%. You know what's super cool is the ability to, like, everyone has their own skill set. Everyone has a gift. Yeah. And even with Lady Gaga saying, I'm destined for greatness.
Yeah.
Like that's all anybody wants. And there's a saying, people will want what's best for you until it surpasses them. And I kind of took that and I realized like, oh, people feel like they're lacking. They feel like, oh, well, you're superior to me in this. And since you're superior to me in this, that makes me inferior. And that's not true. That's not true. We're always all equal. We're on equal playing ground. And just because some may be a better fighter, some may be a better communicator, some may be a better actor, some may be a better comedian, we're all doing the best that we can with what we have and the skills that we've accumulated.
Yeah.
And we can encourage each other and instead of seeing it as, oh, this means I'm inferior in some way, actually it gives you permission to say like, oh, like, look at that greatness. I could achieve that greatness too. It's not scarce. The world is not scarce. Yeah. We don't live in a rat race. The more that people want to tell you that, the more I want you to just back up and just be like, actually, we're in abundance. Actually, we're in total abundance. And there's plenty for everyone. And the more sharing that we do, the better. And the more that we hoard is the more hatred that is built and the more fear that is built when we hoard instead of sharing in a loving way and saying, oh, like if that person has achieved that, then I can achieve that too. If the universe sent them that, the universe can send me anything. Totally. That's the energy.
That's a great point. You know, I was poor kid and I had a lot of jobs throughout my life where I was around rich people, you know, and I think actually that's part of my drive is because I've seen that these are very normal people. I had very real interactions with them. I saw that they were no smarter, no better than anybody else. A doctor, you know, they're no smarter than me. A lawyer, they're no smarter than me. They're average people, you know, and all you have to do is believe that you can do these things, right?
Yes.
That's the battle. If you believe, Lady Gaga believed she could do anything. And if she sets her limit here, and maybe she ends here, but she didn't. She ended up probably further than she thought. But where are you going to get if you set your limit here? You know?
Yes.
So
and see it as attainable. All that greatness is attainable for every single one of us. Each one of us has the hero inside that we get to unlock. Each one of us has the strength of our character. Each one of us has the will to be able to push back against any story we've told ourselves that is limiting ourselves, that is not serving ourselves. Whatever story you've told yourself about how I grew up in this kind of way, I have this kind of religion, I have these kind of parents, I never had this opportunity. The more you tell yourself that story, the more that you limit your own self and you live in scarcity. Get out of that, punch back against that, and learn very, very quickly that actually the world has a lot to offer you. And the more that you stand up for other people when you feel powerless, the more that you give, the more that you unlock your full potential. The more that you are in a state of giving, the more that you unlock your fulfillment and true goodness and wholeness in here, because each one of us is created with that wholeness. And you're not broken. You're not broken. You're actually so whole. You just have to get to discover it on your own. And one of the best ways to do that is to give it to other people. Just be giving, be open, and the universe will only reward you with more.
It takes less work to give than to take, right?
Yes.
Or less work to, you know, to hope for everybody else takes less energy than it does to like be jealous of everybody else. Yes. And the thing is, if you can put things in alignment, you have control of what you can do in life. You know, we talk about this on other episodes. If you want to do something lofty and amazing, you know, you have control of this. But you sitting there hating on people and, you know, paying attention to what they're doing and what's Joe doing next door and, oh, he always has it so much better than me. How is that aligning you to where you're trying to be? Good for Joe. Hope for Joe.
Yes. And say, if Joe did it, I can too.
Yes.
It gives you permission to be in your greatness. And I think the way that you do that is from a place of like effusive ray of sunshine, like Cliff is. Like that it's that when you're that kind of person, when you've attained a certain level of mastery or excellence in your field, and you come with warmth for people, then people feel like, okay, then maybe I can do that too. When you're down to earth, not when you're, oh, I did this, I fashioned this, it's all me. Like, you know, if you're arrogant about it, like no one can touch me, I'm the greatest, I'm the unsinkable ship Titanic. Like, no, you're gonna get sunk. Like, stop with that, and instead just see yourself as a human being in line with all these other beautiful human beings. You know, you're not the first, and who wants to be the first? And who wants to be the last? We want to be all of it. We want to be that for everything, for everyone. We want people to feel like it's, you know, it can be done, and maybe it has been done and you get to do it better. I feel like this whole, like, also this obsession with like, I gotta be the first to do this and whatever. Like, you're a human being. Like, we've been around for millennia. Like, really, you're probably not the first. Like, sit down.
Yeah.
Like, just have some humility.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. And like maybe,
and
like maybe you get to do it better. Cool. Like, you don't, like, who cares? Like, you definitely want to, you know, you don't want to be the first or the last. That's what I want to tell everybody. Like, instead, you want to be the person who's moving forward in life and wishing good for other people, because only good will beget you. That will only bring good and magnetize good towards you.
So I got this crazy thought with your dad talking about, well, the cosmos are bigger. Click.
Yes.
Right.
Well, yes.
And, well, God is greater. Click. So I contemplate with God on a regular basis. And I think about these things. I'm like, all right, God is so magnificent that I don't even think we can comprehend the whole game.
Yes.
And then I came into this realization. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, God's in us.
Yes.
We are God. And it's having that humility, and also like, Yasmin, you are the first and the last Yasmin.
Right.
You're the only.
Yeah.
That's right.
Cliff's the only. Tyler's the only. So I look at it and it's like, no, it's not arrogance. It's a confidence with humility. A confidence with humility. And when I would have conversations with people, I don't go around saying I was a UFC fighter. I don't even really kind of talk about it. Someone will bring it up because they'll Google me, and it will actually make the relationship tighter, because they're like, oh my goodness, you're someone to listen to. Mm-hmm. Everyone's someone to listen to. Mm-hmm. Everyone's someone to listen to. Like, that's my message. Is saying, like, take the time to listen to someone, because I didn't just become me to become me. I became me because we're us.
That's right, because we're us. That's beautiful. That's a more beautiful way of delivering that message. I like that each one of us is the only. It's seeing we have a special gift, in that there's specialness in us, but we're a part of a bigger story, and that's the story of us. That's right.
Yeah.
And we need people to be part of the story too. Otherwise, what point is it? If you're on this planet alone, you know, and you get to have any house, have any car, have anything, you know, where's the value in that?
And, you know, we're not taking anything with us, guys. No one's going to take their Tesla into their grave. No one's taking the Maybach or the really cool trailer that's 80-foot tall Hulk Hogan, although that would be pretty sweet to fit into my coffin. No one's taking any of that with them. So it's like, again, in being in a state of, I think, like humility is being in a state of giving, because you know that it's all gone anyways.
Yep.
It's all, you know, and that's really, I think that's the major message that my father taught me through his life, through his actions. Like, I've been to the highest place, I've been to the lowest place, but I'm still okay. I'm still okay right here. Like, I'm still whole.
that's where I think, you know, and your father is a great example. I, you know, watching the story, you know, I really like, you're my hero in it, but then he is like a wonderful character in
Absolutely.
it, you know? So,
He's my hero. He's
but
my hero.
I mean, when you've gained or accomplished these things, and we watch that quite often, we can see, you know, I'm watching Elon Musk these days and the way he's transitioning life, right? So when he first came out and he had his first company, I forget the name of it, that sold to PayPal, he cashed in big, right? And he did what every kid would do. He goes out there and buys the fancy cars and the fancy houses, and he's living it up, you know, because now he's got all this money. But look at him these days. He brags about being in a $50,000 house or not at all. And what that is, Maslow was talking about something called transcendence. I guess he was working on this when he passed away. And I think in Maslow's basic hierarchy of basic needs is food, water, shelter sort of stuff. And then we start needing for other things, right? We start needing for acceptance and love and things like that. But I think we get to this level, like Maslow was talking, transcendence. And I think Elon Musk is actually starting to get there, where you want to now, you realize there's no gain in these monetary possessions. Like there is no fulfillment in that. Look at Jim Carrey. He'll talk about this all the time. You have money, power, fame, everything. You're still not happy. So you have to find that next level. And I think that next level is doing for others. Because otherwise, why are we here?
Why are we here? And one of the doing for others that you can do is to protect each other's dignity, to protect one another, to shepherd each other, to be those sheepdogs out with the wolves, and the wolves seem so attractive. You've always wanted to be a wolf. You're just a dog, but no, you don't have to be one of them. You don't. The dog is loyal and the dog is good. And you know, to try your best. I think that really should be the driving message in this episode, please, of this particular podcast, but it's for your whole podcast. Like, giving to each other, by giving each other the dignity, by giving each other protection, you're only going to win from that. Everybody wins from that, right? Like Cliff was saying, everybody gets to go home with a Tesla. Everybody gets to go home with a big screen TV. Like everyone gets to win. Everyone gets to win when you do that.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I look at the wolf dog, the sheep, and the wolves. And ultimately, I say it's in every one of us. Yes, it's the one that we focus on. It's the one that we choose to focus on.
Like,
which
that's
one
right, Cliff.
Yeah,
It's so good. You're right. Each one of us has it in us.
Yeah.
It's the dog we choose to feed, like we talked about before.
Yasmin,
we could do 4 hours with you.
We could. We could be talking all day on this. Good Lord, it's so good. So good.
But I
just saw electricity.
Yeah, I did too.
That's really cool.
That
You're
crazy?
so powerful. Just like there was electricity that came out. That was really cool.
It was this cord, but it looked like electricity. You can't tell. You can't tell I have headphones, guys, because I don't have ears.
She's a magician.
I don't really have ears.
Yasmin, I really want to give you a chance to talk about what you're doing now and what you're, hoping to do next, and any surprises you can let us in on, that's in store for your future.
Look, my biggest dream would be to, make it back on TV, continue to do that. That would be really cool. In the meantime, what I'll be doing is a TEDx talk at the Kennedy Center, which is really cool. Eisenhower Theater, May 18th. I'm really excited about that. You can get tickets. You can stream it internationally. It's going to be a really cool event of top thinkers called Mavericks and Moonshots, which I thought was kind of cool because I feel like a maverick sometimes. Boop, 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 boop.
That's awesome.
It's kind of cool.
Nice.
And I'm a finalist for the Yes and Laughter Lab, which is really cool, which is a fantastic comedy incubator for people with progressive social message. So I'm really excited about that. As a finalist with the Yes and Laughter Lab, I get to work on my 1 hour comedy special, and it's called Elhati and Alabama Scorcher. Elhati, get it? Like,
that's awesome. We need a t-shirt.
I know, right? I need merch. So I'm really excited about that. I'd love to, to sell that 1 hour special and have it streaming on a major streamer. That would be my dream. And if none of those things happen, guys, I'll just be lawyering here in the corner, being quiet. Not quiet, but quiet.
You're doing so much amazing stuff. We didn't even have time to get into we only
I know. I have other jobs. And you know what you don't know about me, Cliff and Tyler, and you guys can cut this out, but I'm actually a former matchmaker. So I have.
Is that right?
I have 55 marriages.
Wow,
And
interesting.
Isn't that weird that I do that?
Yeah.
That's a weird thing. It's just a form of service. It's just a side gig. I did it.
Now I feel like you're seeing us as pieces of meat in a little bit. You're
like,
who can we snap this guy up
to? I feel like I love that. Yes, you should feel like this is a meat market, and if anyone is single, call me. No, but I used to do this. So right now I'm in talks with like a production crew to make it into a show. Actually, my matchmaking into a show, maybe. So we'll see.
That's awesome.
Okay.
We'll see. It's like a whole other thing. I don't know if I should do it though, because then that confuses. What else can I do? I'm also like a short order cook and I'm a plumber and I'm a seamstress. I don't know. I need to stop doing things.
I can see your star. It's getting so bright, and we're actually really blessed to have grabbed you just in time before you take off and won't talk to us anymore.
You're such a good man. That's not true. I would always talk to you, Tyler. And really, it's Tyler what? Cliff what? UFC? I'm not even do that. I don't even do UFC. So I really appreciate you guys. This has been really wonderful. Martin, I hope you've enjoyed every single second of this because you're probably going to edit this at the end. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for everything.
Keep shaking his head. Cliff, what do you got for final thoughts?
You're a shining star, and I gotta say, so one of the reasons we could talk to you for hours, you're a great communicator. Yeah. You educate and you entertain. Yes. And having both of those skill sets, both of those skill sets together, making it fun, making the process fun, and having people really feed on it and take it in. I love it. I absolutely love it. So keep shining bright for others and keep having fun. Keep hitting that accelerator.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ray of Sunshine. Cliff, thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
And what's so great about Yasmin is she's like this atypical package with just this Hulk Hogan, fire ant underneath
that is super cool.
And just sticking up for people and, not afraid to say what's right. And her whole life, depicts this. And, a lot of the greatest thing comes in uncommon packages. And, a lot of what we don't understand, we immediately, if anybody should learn anything through this program, it's what we don't understand that we usually scares us, and then that leads to bullying and other things. And so take the time to understand your neighbor, and think about the road that they're going through. And next time, that you see somebody that could use some sticking up for, don't be afraid to say, hey, why are you doing this? And with that note, I really want to thank everybody for joining in. I want to thank once again Martin and the people here at the studio. I want to thank our producers, Elliot and Kelly, and especially Yasmin. You're awesome. So good to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Tyler.
You're all amazing.
Great. You guys are all amazing. Thank you to your entire production crew, and thank you for having me on the show. We all want the same thing. All human beings want the same thing. We want to be loved. We want to be respected. We want our dignity. So help spread that.
Absolutely.
Help spread that to everyone around you. What you want, other people want too. Don't ever forget that. So, treat people the way that you want to be treated. That's a real thing. That is like a real thing. So I hope that everyone here feels the power to do that and the strength to do that and the encouragement to do that. And I can't wait to see all the great, cool things that you guys get to do on this podcast and beyond, and all the lives you get to touch. I can't wait to all the people who are listening. I can't wait about all your stories. I want you to share them. I want you to, get on a platform and talk about them, about standing up for each other, about loving each other. Those are the kinds of stories we should be amplifying, because those are the ones that remind us of our humanity. Thank you for having me.
Amen.
Well said. With that note, thank you everybody for tuning in to Bully This.
We'll
see you next week.
Take care.
You've been listening to Bully This, A Hero's Journey. The effects on kids that are bullied are many. Increased risk for depression, anxiety, sleep difficulties, lower grades, and dropping out of school. It's a real problem, and that's why we created this show. We're acutely aware of the pain, shame, and damage that bullying causes, and our passion is to help kids and families to know that there is always help, that there is always a solution. We hope you've gotten some useful information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Facebook at Bully This, A Hero's Journey. Take care, and we'll see you next time.